Patriots Daily is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Cowles here for CLNS Media. With the deadline quickly approaching, just a couple of weeks away, and the Patriots sitting at 1-5, it seems like the team is going to be sellers. Not a lot of buying is probably going to be going on. They just need to probably get capital, start preparing for next season with some nice young talent. And I was pretty curious. I got my ideas of who they could end up moving on from, who I think should stay and be a building block. But, I'm just a guy first year on the beat. I'm the tape guy. I need someone who understands the salary cap, roster construction, and there is no one that I trust more when it comes to those areas than PFF's Brad Spielberger. Brad, thank you for coming on again. How are you doing, my friend?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you. I'm doing great. Hey, we're less than 2 weeks away from the deadline. I think it's about to get a little busy.
Yeah, two people who are fans of teams that are probably going to be selling some people off this weekend.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep, probably. And today, actually, there was some news. We had press conferences for the Pats, and there were a couple players who were directly asked about how they're feeling along the trade deadline. First one we'll talk about, Mac Jones. Now, obviously, he gave the Patriots answer where he's like, I'm focused on the next week. I'm not really thinking about it, whatever. I'm really curious about what you think his capital would actually be if they were to sell off, because based on how he's been the past couple of years, obviously there's a caveat of he's got no help around him really. But at the same time, how much do you think a team would actually be willing to give up to acquire him at this point in his career?
Yeah, so I would say first, as we get more active in deadlines, last year we had 10 trades in the week before the deadline, twice as many as any year the prior decade. I get asked a lot about, the Kirk Cousins, the Ryan Tannehills, Mac Jones. I know you didn't ask just a trade deadline, but a general thought, I don't think we'll see a starting quarterback ever really moved at the deadline. But anyway, let's flash forward to this offseason, right? He still, has the fifth-year option decision that maybe another team could make, still has 2 cheap years in theory left on his deal, maybe just the one, but still a guy that, look, there probably were a lot of teams in the draft that at least scouted him pretty heavily, liked what they saw in Mac Jones, and like you said, has not had a great supporting cast pretty much the entire time. The first year, they obviously spent a ton of money, brought in a lot of players, and they were solid. They made the playoffs for a reason. I think you're looking at a Trey Lance type compensation, right? I mean, you're getting an early day 3 pick on a team that says, yeah, we think we can find a way to use Mac Jones. We think they, weren't using him properly, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the issue with him is for a lot of those type of conversations, Trey Lance, obviously a perfect example, my guy, Justin Fields, et cetera, they have God-given talent and unreal ability that another building can say, we can tap into that and they didn't do a good job. Mac Jones doesn't really have that. He's a good processor. He showed a lot in college, whatever, but there's not arm strength there. There's not mobility there. So yeah, long answer short, a 4th round pick.
4th round pick. I might actually entertain that one. That might not be too bad because especially if he's going to another team, they don't know how much has he regressed and how much can we save his career. So there's a lot of question marks, but a 4th wouldn't be too bad. Next one that was brought up today, Kendrick Bourne. He was asked about it. He said, I'm aware of it. I'd lie if I said I wasn't thinking about it, but I'm happy being a Patriot. I think Patriots fans are happy to have him, especially after a career-high 10-catch game last week. Has never really been the focal point of the offense. People were claiming for that last year. This year, it seemed like he was primed to be that guy, but there's still been some inconsistency, although he's been picking it up a bit of late. How much value do you think he would have to another team that's maybe looking for more of a light number 2 or a number 3 where he could go in there and do his thing without necessarily having to be the focal point?
Yeah, I think there is value there. It's the kind of guy you see as a potential trade deadline target. Like you said, I think he can fold into a lot of different offenses. The best blocker in the world, but there's a reason you play for San Fran and then New England, teams that don't bring in receivers that won't at least give effort in that area as they work you into the actual, passing game of the team. He has a reasonable contract. Obviously, it is an expiring deal. I think it is key you mentioned there too, though. Last year, I'm sure he was maybe even asking for a trade, in Matt Patricia's doghouse, not playing. Now, yeah, the team's not winning, but he's playing a lot of football and could probably view it as, I could stay here as a fringe number 1 target option, put up good tape, put up a lot of good statistics, and then hit free agency. And as we know, the Pittmans and Higgins of the world probably get franchise tagged, and all of a sudden, Bourne's like a top 5 free agent wide receiver. So same probably value just because it is a guy on a veteran deal that you're bringing in midseason to be probably number 3 for a contender. Same thing, 4th, 5th round pick, maybe multiple day 3 picks. I know that never sounds attractive, never sounds interesting, but the cash savings and just getting more than nothing, we'll probably talk about compensatory picks, which of course the Patriots are as good as anyone at netting those. They have the most cap space in the NFL. They're probably going to spend a ton of money and cancel out all of those, potential compensatory picks.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So if he were to get a compensatory pick, based on whatever contract you think you get on the market, what are you thinking? Like a fifth, maybe like a sixth, something in that area?
So fifth, which is how I approach all these deals, is just look at, what do you think he's going to sign for and what would that equate to? And his deal, in my estimation, if he plays like this the rest of the year, would be most likely a fifth. I mean, best case scenario, a fourth, but you're talking like $13 million at that point, which he's not going to get. He gets 7, 8 or something like that. It'll be a fifth round value.
Yeah, and like you said, they're probably going to be very heavy spenders as free agencies, so there's no guarantee that they would even be getting that. A guy who's in kind of a similar boat, Hunter Henry. Now, he's been another one of those guys where he's the only really consistent target they have, doesn't have the explosiveness that he used to have. As a run blocker, I think he gets more crap than he deserves. He's solid, but he's not a guy that you want like in a Pharaoh Brown role, what they have right now, at the point of attack consistently. That said, he's a team captain, so there's value there. And kind of like a Kendrick Bourne, I think you're thinking, well, if he is going to get sold off or if he doesn't get sold off, are you going to extend him? Because these are positions where you would like some stability going into next season. And again, Hunter Henry being a team captain, even if you don't have Mac Jones, he's the kind of safety blanket over the middle where you draft maybe a young, dynamic talent at tight end and have him kind of be that stopgap where he's going to be solid. You know what you're going to get. And if the other guy just plays better than him, then you deal with that when it comes. But if some team comes calling, Hunter Henry's a guy that they're questioning or asking about, rather, what do you think he would be getting on the open or on the trade market, rather?
Yeah, I see the same way as you, where like I actually could see, I know he's an older player now, like you said, maybe he's not going to have explosives, but very reliable. It's funny now, because of all the great move tight ends, we think every inline guy that can't catch passes like Travis Kelce stinks in that regard. And then because of the Mercedes Lewis's of the world, the Gronks of the world, we think every guy that can't dig out a defensive end and displace, he's now a terrible blocker. And most modern tight ends are kind of falling in between those two categories. So he's a good player. I mean, the team that jumps to mind immediately for me is the Cincinnati Bengals, who basically don't have a viable tight end on the roster. You look around the NFL, I don't think there's a lot of other obvious, like, hey, we're a contender, we need tight end, and we'd probably be willing to do something. They're kind of the only team that I had circled when I went through that process. It's an early day 3 at best, because it actually is a big contract. I mean, you're talking some teams, I don't think Cincinnati, but some teams would have to, clear room, restructure deals just to bring him in, even with the prorated portion of his salary this year. So it's a mid-round pick, but again, it's more about you're just getting something instead of nothing, which again, the Patriots also historically have been incredible. Like, hey, yeah, it's not great. Does it help our team right now? Do we maybe lose out on a guy that we would like here in the long term? Yes, but they also could, in classic Patriots fashion, go sign that guy back in free agency or something like that. So long answer short, 4th round pick, but I actually view him more as a guy they want to keep around. Like you said, bring in a move next year that's a better fit than a Gesicki. Let Hunter Henry kind of be a different role in the offense and bring that guy along. Makes sense to me.
I'd love to see a different role than what Mike Gesicki has been in the offense, because it's been quite interesting so far. Another guy that I personally hope the Patriots build around, but one, they don't really pay this position, as we saw with Joe Thuney, and also injuries are really going to muddy his situation. Mike Onwenu. Now, he has not been able to, he's missed games. Last week, he was active but didn't play at all. And then when he's in the lineup, he usually hasn't been finishing the games, had off-season ankle surgery, missed the entire summer. God bless him. The guy went out and tried to gut it out in the regular season after not having any preparation. Hasn't looked the same, but I don't think anybody who's looking at it, fairly is saying, oh, like Mike Onwenu, he's falling off. It's like, nah, man, the guy's fighting through something pretty serious. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Do you think any team would be interested enough to say, hey, we'll take the chance, like maybe we'll give him a couple weeks to get healthy or, what have you, make a role for him? Or do you think he's somebody who's probably going to stick with the Pats and then you wait and see what happens at the end of the season, how healthy he is at that point?
Yeah, that does complicate matters for sure. Like we saw today with Jeremy Chin, the Panthers safety, who I imagine was receiving some calls on. Now he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Like it just removes that guy from the trade market. Yeah, there's a risk there, right? We're talking about trades when it's an expiring contract. The entire point is this guy's going to be a mercenary for us for 10 games, help us get in the playoffs, maybe make a playoff run. So if he's dealing with something, it kind of dampens the value there. I just thought when they took Antonio Mafia and City, so it kind of raised my antenna a little bit. Like you said, they've let Joe Thuney's a phenomenal football player. They let him walk as well. Onwenu has the position flex, though, for me, where it's interesting. I mean, there might be a team that says, we're going to put him back at right tackle. And there are teams across the NFL that I think could use that. I think maybe it's a little bit better. The injury I would have to know more about, but he's a guy that maybe you could, in theory, see a team signing him for a pretty solid contract in free agency. He obviously is scheme specific. I think he has to be in a gap scheme, which kind of limits how many teams are in that market. But I could see him sign a deal that maybe gets you a high fourth, maybe not a third, but a solid contract that helps the comp pick formula again. Yeah, I think for a fourth round pick, I know I'm getting repetitive here, but I think they maybe pull the trigger just because, like you said, the young guys haven't played particularly great. Cole Strange also dealing with stuff in his own right, but is he in the long term plan is the question.
I feel like your evaluations are just a reflection of the roster. Like, that's what makes it really tough. You look at this team, and I'm like, who are they going to get who isn't going to only get back a day 3 pick? Like, yeah, early fourth rounder is really nice, but it's a poor reflection when your team is in the bad position they're in. And there's not only kind of a dearth of building blocks other than, defense. They got Gonzalez, Keon White, kind of Marte Mapu to a degree. Better there, but offensively, it's like, I don't really – who are we building around?
Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining Fanduel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Fanduel, official partner of the NFL.
Ever wish you could navigate the betting field with the confidence of a pro? Enter Odds Are. They're not a sports book, but they're the sports betting advisor you've always needed. It's like having a playbook for smarter bets right in your pocket. I've been absolutely loving the experience, and I think you will too. Especially since Patriots Press Pass listeners get a 30-day free trial. Elevate your game day and join the smart betting revolution. Go get it at oddsr.com/presspass. That's oddsr.com/presspass.
Josh Uche, again, similar situation to Mike Onwenu. His injury isn't as significant. He's dealing with the foot. Jeremy Fowler said it's not going to be a long-term issue. And we actually talked about this because Josh Uche is an interesting one. So we talked about him as an extension candidate, what he could get next season. I know you've mentioned, and this has really changed my perspective on the whole market, is edge rushers in this free agent class could be depreciating because you got so many talented young edge rushers. A guy who's just a designated pass rusher like Uche might not get the contract that he is really envisioning at this point. But for the Patriots, Matt Judon's out. You expect Uche to become your great pass rusher. Like, this is his perfect opportunity. If you want to see what he can do against the run, he's probably going to get the snaps. We've seen Anthony Jennings, who wasn't even active in the first week of the season. He's really been the bigger Judon replacement. He's been a great run defender, okay pass rusher, but he's producing. Whereas Josh Uche, I think the book is out on him now, where you saw last year, like, there was a hilarious rep against the Bills where I think Spencer Brown, like, literally Uche just kind of hesitates and Brown falls down and it looks like he's using the force. And it was like he was really scaring people with that speed. This year, I think they're expecting it. And then when he tries to transition that to power, you see it's a thump and guys are anchoring down. So you're not getting pass rush productivity. They're trying to move him around. It's not working. I'm getting worried. I feel like this is sell, sell, sell as soon as you can, so he doesn't keep putting out bad tape and giving people's reason to say, well, he can't be our #1 or he can't be like the designated pass rusher. He might need somebody who can work off of maybe as a power guy to, like, kind of soften the edge and then he goes around. All that to say, what do you think the deal is with Uche? Should they wait it out because he's got so many great second half bursts and maybe, you appreciate his value for the market? Or are you saying, I'm not trusting it right now, I'm selling and I'm just going to get as much as I can? And what do you think the highest pick they could get would actually be?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I didn't know he was dealing with something, injury-wise. You mentioned that because I watched his Week 5 film. He played 36 snaps, which for us was, I think, the second most of his entire career. Obviously, the first game after, Judon goes out and say, okay, he's going to play those early down snaps. They're going to see what he can do. It wasn't great against the run, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I didn't think it was like unplayable. It didn't. But then you flash forward this week, it was 19 snaps. And I think there were a couple reps against the run that I would characterize as probably in the category of unplayable. So, yeah, I like your perspective of, like, sell him while there is still a high market value. I think he is a guy that nets you a day 2 pick. It might be a third, not a second, but I think he can. I did a mock trade for him, a third and a future fifth. I think I sent him to the Seattle Seahawks, who I think need a little bit more juice off the edge. He fits. They have like 6 Josh Uches on their roster already.
So they got Uchenna. That's the headliner.
Yeah, one I had a 7th, I guess. But yeah, it's like, because those guys always are the guy you see move at the deadline for more than they're probably worth. But a playoff team is sitting there and saying there's going to be a high leverage moment late in the season where we're down a score and we're pinning our ears back, or maybe whatever, we're up a score. We're trying to prevent a team from scoring a passing touchdown on us. Let's bring in a guy that can get after the quarterback. And obviously that is Josh Uche. So yeah, I think you're getting a day 2 pick there. And it's, again, the same conversation. I don't think he's a franchise tag guy. You don't tag guys that don't play 400 snaps in a season. So are you worried someone else is going to come in and be willing to pay way more than you are, which is probably the case? You know the guy better than anybody else does. Yeah, I think he is a guy you sell high on, because I think the market right now is probably about as good as it can be.
And especially, I'm really glad you mentioned the fact that they do have to sell, and the compensatory picks are kind of, you can't even really count on them. That completely, I think, affects your thinking, where it's like, all right, what's the point of us letting these guys hit the market and literally getting nothing for them, regardless of how they replace? I keep coming back to that. That was a good one. Now, another one of the headliners for the 2024 Patriots free agent class, Kyle Duggar. This is one of the guys who I think is a building block. Is he going to be 30 soon? Yes. Patrick Chung and Devin McCourty were both guys who either did or planned on playing into their mid-30s. So if you're one of those freak athletes at the position, you're smart, and you really, especially in that system, you get a lot of man-to-man experience. You get experience with different things, so you're smarter, and by that point in your career, you're super versatile. So while he's up there in age, I think he's someone that you've got to build around. But at the same time, if they're saying, hey, I think a Kyle Duggar could fetch me a high enough pick to get like a game-changing receiver, and I already have a lot of good safeties, do you think that there should be legitimate thought into moving Kyle Duggar more than just the, we're taking calls on everybody, like really thinking about it? Or do you think this is a guy where you really don't want to disrupt a safety group that already lost Devin McCourty? Peppers and Phillips are great, but Duggar to me feels like a glue guy. So what are your thoughts there?
I view it the same way. I think he's a stud. I get he was an older draft pick, so is now an older player. I also, you talk about guys aging, like an Adrian Phillips, who kind of just like morphed into different styles of player, like in certain years. Like I could see a scenario where Duggar does different things, has different roles, and Belichick trusts him to kind of like, morph his career and what he does on a year-to-year basis, which obviously carries a ton of value. For me, he's the franchise tag guy. I mentioned not the other guys, probably not. I think he is a very possible franchise tag candidate. Maybe they work off that and do get a second contract done. In a trade, safety's tough. You don't see a lot of big, outside of Jamal Adams, I was looking again for this article. You don't see a lot of major capital moved for safeties, in particular at the deadline. But I'm probably not giving him away for anything less than a 2nd-round pick if I'm the New England Patriots, right? Like he's a very, very good player. I agree with you as a building block. He's versatile. I think he's looked better this year to me in some facets than even in years past. Like, yeah. So anyway, and then if not, I think you tag him and you try to get a deal done. And I think he will be reasonable. Yeah, he was a top 40 pick, but he knows he's 28 at a position that some dudes fall off at 30. Like you said, some guys, if you're whatever, you play till you're 37, but that's also not really his game, is just kind of sitting back and being a deep third ball hawk. So anyway, 2nd-round pick or a franchise tag.
Same page. I like where your head's at, buddy.
With the NFL season officially underway, it's been pretty tough finding time to cook for myself and my family, and even tougher making meals that both taste good and don't destroy my body. Thankfully, our friends at Factor provide ready-to-eat meal kits that are not only chef-prepared, but also dietitian approved and delivered straight to your door. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know any chefs or any dietitians, so this has been a huge help for me on a daily basis. These save me a ton of money. I don't have to go to the grocery store to get ingredients. And most importantly, they taste fantastic. Additionally, they save me a desperate trip to the nearest fast food place when I have completely forgotten to cook myself dinner. Head to factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 and use code PatsDaily50 to get 50% off. That's code PatsDaily50 at factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 to get 50% off.
All right, last one. Now, this is a player who does not seem happy with his lack of usage. Frankly, I'm pretty surprised by it. Jalen Mills. He tweeted either last week or 2 weeks ago where he was like, I think it was last week, he was like, damn, because he only played 10 snaps. I think it was against the Saints at that point. And when you look at his tape, there are some missed tackles. Like, to be frank, I tried to make a little reel to see like, all right, what have his impact play has been? maybe I'll try to make a push for the guy. And there were like 3 bad missed tackles where I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, dog. I can't sign off on this. But at the same time, you see a lot of instinctiveness versus the run. You like the physicality. His timing is a blitz. You saw it in the preseason. You see it in limited opportunities this year. And he can move and play a lot of different positions. But they seem to be happier with Miles Bryant, Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar. Even Marte Mapu has been getting more snaps than him. Do you think Jalen Mills is someone that they should be like, hey, we got plenty of safeties. Let's just let the guy be happy elsewhere? And if that happens, what do you think they could get in return?
I do. I think, look around this class this year in particular, and I don't see a lot of defensive back talent that I think is readily available. Like you look at the teams that you think are selling off pieces, and I just don't see a lot of names that pop up. And he obviously, again, has position flex, can play corner, can play safety. You're not getting much. I mean, you're getting a 6th or 7th round pick, but I think it might still be worth it because, like you said, you have a lot of in-house replacements. I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Mapu. I didn't watch this past week, but he's fun to watch on tape.
He didn't play last week, actually. I think he either played the least or didn't play, so he didn't miss anything.
Yeah, save me some work. Yeah, I love it. So, but yeah, no. So I do like. Look, you and I would probably agree. The New England Patriots don't love seeing a damn only 10 snaps tweet. I saw that. I knew where you were going with that. So, yeah, it was like tweeting the beat with like the whole sheet or whatever it was, too. I remember seeing that. So, yeah, I think so. I think you're trying to keep this locker room together. You're trying to keep people happy. I mean, the defense has obviously been playing well, outside the last 2 weeks. So you'd imagine at least that unit, you'd keep the core there and convince them, hey, we're gonna retool this offense in the offseason, and we'll be right back in the thick of things. But yeah, there are a lot of teams I think that need defensive back help, no matter where you want to throw it. Detroit may be interesting. Obviously, some connections historically there. They've had some injuries to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, etc. There are a lot of good football teams that I think can use corner help right now. Maybe Mills is a good name.
What are you thinking pick-wise? I'm thinking 3rd. Is that fair? Considering his positional value. I know it might be a little.
So yeah, I think you're getting a 6th. I think you're happy with a 6th on that one, unfortunately. Yeah,
I was a little out of pocket with a 3rd. I got excited because you were excited that you got me excited. But yeah, 6th is pretty fair, making the guy happy. All right, man. Thank you so much. Great perspective as always. You bring me down when I just need some reality, and I appreciate you a lot. Please and thank you. Tell the people where they can find your tremendous work.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I think we saw eye there in a lot of it. That's always good.
I just got excited at the end.
Yeah, this is the Kyle Duggar podcast. So, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at PFF_Brad. And, of course, at PFF.com. I'm going to be covering the trade deadline pretty much daily for the next 2 weeks. So, come check that out. Get mad at me about how little I think your favorite players are going to return. I'll be covering it wire to wire.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we will see you next time.